Hey you and welcome, my name is Mike, and surprise, surprise, look what the cat dragged in, again. It's a new episode of the That Chapter podcast. The potty's back, baby! I said potty once before and I really cringe thinking back on it. So, wherever you were and whatever you were, I mean, you know, who knows, maybe I'm talking to the dog. I hope you're good. And you know what? Let me just say a little thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. But you know what? I know you didn't come here to listen to me, try and give you a little tuggy. You came for some crazy tales, and that is just what I have for you. In this whole episode, I'm telling you 2 stories. Whoa. 2, if you can believe that. And you know, when I'm doing twofers, I always kind of want to link them by team or events or locations or whatever. Today's theme, my friends, is poison. I gotta feel like I'm a teacher here. Like I should write that on the chalkboard. Poison, spelt Y-O-U or F-U-C-K. Oh wait, that's not right. But it is true. We got colchicine. Hey, why should take me out for dinner first? And we also got antifreeze, so very warm. Let's give it a go. Mary Yoder ran her chiropractor business out of 312 Oriskany Boulevard in Whitesboro, upstate New York. She was popular with the patients, well-liked, and though she was 60 years old, she seemed younger and encouraged her patients to follow her example. Have you tried just simply not growing old? Mary was born in Buffalo, go Bills, in 1955, one of 8 children to parents Arthur and Norma Bakert. Mary, she was good crack to be around, the adventurous sort. She went on to study chiropractic in college, and it was there she met Bill Yoder, who she would marry. It was the pair of them that together ran Chiropractic Family Care in Whitesboro. Bill, the quieter type, Mary, the friendly face. Bill and Mary, they had a lot in common. I mean, obviously, studying the same thing. They were mad into holistic living. They were health nuts, herbs, ointments, all that whole kind of kit and caboodle. Bill and Mary would have 3 children together. You got your Liana, you got your Tamarin, and you got the baby of the family, that was Adam. So, the family, they were thriving, the kids grew. Adam, he would work as a receptionist at the practice, with Adam's girlfriend, Caitlin Connolly, eventually taking over in 2013. She would take the bookings, meet the patients as they arrived, all that sort of thing, meaning being a receptionist. Caitlin was one of 7 daughters, daughter of an army major, and a local to upstate New York. She was smart, driven, and loved. They always are. So, it's to 2015, that year, that we go. By that stage, both Mary and Bill were getting along in the tooth. Time to hang up the old back stuff, and they were looking at retirement. Getting kind of just pretty fucking sick of the whole work thing, kind of, done with that. And so that was on the cards, but that wouldn't be the hand they were dealt. Inserting dun 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 right here. So, Mary was up and at 'em on the 20th of July 2015, a Monday morning. She had a full schedule of clients that day and was raring to go. In the morning, she had her regular patients, saw good, a regular normal day. Then, lunch. After, something changed in Mary, a switch flicked. Patients said she seemed unwell in the afternoon, sick. She had redness, puffiness around her eyes, kind of cold or flu-like symptoms, but they hit her like a freight train. One patient said her condition looked bright green, which, I don't think you're supposed to, that's not a good sign, Have you tried not being green? Her condition got worse as the afternoon turned to evening, and then they closed up for the day. I'm talking puking and pooping. Bill, he wasn't in work that day, but she called him, and he said, when he saw her, she was pale, sweaty, and she just looked terrible when she got home. She spent the night on the couch, and when she looked even worse the next morning, well, that is when they took her to St. Luke's Hospital in Whitesboro, at this point becoming seriously worried. She was brought into the emergency room on the morning of July 21st with diarrhea and vomiting. And from there, things happened fast. The next day, she started having a series of heart attacks. Bill said she looked absolutely terrified, and none of the doctors, specialists even, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her or why this was happening, to an extremely healthy woman who, it was so sudden. She was fine, happy, healthy, cheery self, then literally dying, and none of the obvious things for a woman of her age seemed to be the culprit. And that's what happened on the afternoon of the 22nd of July. Mary Yoder passed away. The family, they were devastated. Even more so because they just didn't know what had just happened. The doctors, they were baffled. I mean, the first idea was that it must have been some kind of infection that had just absolutely ravaged her. Now, Mary's family were a medical family. Her daughter, a physician, one of her sisters, a nurse, and they requested toxicology reports be undertaken to try and really find out what had actually happened to Mary Yoder, as opposed to guessing. And the longer those results took to get back, the more the family, began to wonder, and that wonder grew if there was something more going on here. There was no reason. Mary, a lovely woman, what you think could have happened. Like poison? Someone poisoned her? Like taking the piss, If that wasn't what the toxicology report showed. Because that is just what it told them. Colchicine is used to treat gout, a painful form of arthritis, right? Taking too much colchicine is it's a very bad idea if you want to keep on living, really. If you want to keep breathing, maybe say no to the overdose on colchicine. It's toxic, and it can be fatal. It has a, quote, a narrow therapeutic index, which means that the range between therapeutic and toxic, that range is very, very small. Too much, you'll get diarrhea, vomiting, a burning sensation on the skin, throat, and it results in organ failure. And it's extremely painful the entire way through. It is hard to believe. It's not a very pleasant way to go. And that is just how Mary went. Mary, she didn't have gout. She wasn't taking colchicine. She would have no reason to be taking it. So how did that much of it get into her system? It was 3 months after Mary's death that the police investigation began. They looked, at the supplements she took, and none were found to have been contaminated. And to be lethal, like colchicine, you'd have to take a few. Like, you'd need to be popping them back like they were Skittles. So it seems unlikely she might have, inadvertently taken something. And so then they began to pursue the theory that she was poisoned, that it was murder. But where to begin? Well, they began at the beginning with the husband. 90% of the time, it's 100% the spouse, am I right? Bill, he was interviewed. Their relationship poked, their marriage, poked and prodded. Now, Bill didn't seem that upset about the death of his wife. Mary, she was close with her family, and her family thought that Bill had crocodile tears the entire time. He just didn't seem terribly, terribly sad. And what was even more suspect was that Mary's siblings thought they spotted Bill at Mary's sister Kathy's house a lot. Like a lot. Like he was going to the wrong sister's house, you know what I mean? But they had no problems, Bill and Mary. They were a happy marriage, planning on retiring and traveling the world together. He wasn't in the practice that day, and as it was, it was so sudden, well, it seemed he was clear. There wasn't enough to pursue him as a suspect anyway. And they looked into everyone, actually. Caitlin, she was there the entire day, but also nothing really there. And it remained this way for weeks, until the lead detective received an anonymous letter, just an anonymous letter out of the blue. The letter said that Adam, Mary's son, was responsible. He had poisoned his mother. It told of how he put colchicine in one of Mary's vitamin supplements, but he regretted his actions. He bought the drug online, and his reason for this was that he thought, his mother was unfair to him, and he hoped to win some sweet, sweet green out of her death. The letter also, like a movie, told that you will find a bottle of colchicine under the front seat of Adam's Jeep. Farewell. So the police went and they had a go to see if the letter was bullshit or not. It was in early December that they searched Adam's truck and they confronted him with this anonymous letter. And Adam, when the police went to him, he was absolutely shocked. But he was even more shocked when, what do you hear? What do you say? They found a bottle of colchicine in his car. Suffering from gout, are we, boy? It was a purer form of the drug than what you'd normally get prescribed. It was the good kush, where, well, it would only take a handful of pills for you to say goodnight. Along with the drug, they found a receipt with Adam's name and email on it also. Now, Adam, he said he was being framed. Someone had planted it in his Jeep. And to be honest, something seemed off about this whole situation to the police also. The day Mary got sick, he was also across the country visiting family, and the strength of this poison and how soon she got sick, it must have been someone who was with her that day. The police, they actually let him go at that time, but of course, he was in the crosshairs. So Adam was saying he was being framed, and the investigators maybe thought he could be right. Did someone try to kill a person they didn't like, then hoped the blame landed on someone else they didn't like? Don't mind if I do, a twofer. But who? Or whom? Whom knows? Maybe his dad, Bill. He was still an odd cookie. To investigate more into Bill, they started talking to Caitlin. Caitlin, she worked with them both, and she had an on-again, off-again relationship with Adam, which at the time was off again. She was studying business at Utica College, and she was happy to help. And she said Adam hadn't been his usual self lately. Was it possible he had done it? Sure, she said. This led the police to asking Caitlin, did you write the anonymous letter? She did.
So you are our letter writer, correct? That's what you told Mark.
What made you write the letter? You wanted us to know?
Yeah.
Or did you want to see Adam get in trouble?
No, like it's not to see him get in trouble.
Are you okay?
Yeah, sometimes can.
What?
Yeah.
I understand that. Look, I'm going to be in here with you, okay? And together we're going to get through talking about this.
She said that Adam had confessed to her. Caitlin's confession, that Adam confessed, though that just made the police look more at her. More and more like, was she the one licking her chops at the idea of a 2-for-1 type deal? Kill the mother, blame the son. After all, the investigators thought that Mary had ingested the poison during the day, probably at lunchtime, as she was absolutely fine. Up until then, after lunch, she was done for, and the poison acted very, very quickly. It was powerful. It was very powerful. And Caitlin was with her the entire day. Mary, she always took a protein shake. Easy, right? To smash up some pills, sneak it in there, sneak it in like schnockta. The email address on the receipt, records showed Adam's IP address never accessed that email address. Like, it was literally like Adam Yoder at Gmail, like, you know what I mean? And from where he used his phones, from his home IP address, that never accessed that email address. But Caitlin's IP address in her home, it had accessed that email account. Her search history, guess what? Colchicine in it. The colchicine that was bought, the colchicine that was used to poison Mary, the bottle that was found in Adam's car, that had been bought online using prepaid credit cards. Caitlin admitted she owned those credit cards. But why? What would she have to gain if she did indeed kill Mary Yoder and then try and blame it on her ex-boyfriend? Well, Caitlin Connolly never said she did it. She never admitted she did it. And Mary's family, her sisters, they said, no way, it couldn't be Caitlin. Maybe she's the one being framed. But regardless, Caitlin was arrested and charged with Mary's murder. Her trial went ahead in early 2017. Now, it was circumstantial, but all the evidence pointed towards Caitlin. She was the only person there in the practice that day who would have, had access to Mary Yoder's supplies, her drinks, her that kind of thing. She was with her all day. Her records pointed to her buying it, and she had searched for it on her search history. And she would have had ample time to slip it into her drink. The motive, the prosecution said, was to get back at Adam after they broke up. It worked. They did actually get back together after Mary's death. However, when they broke up yet again, as they were one of those couples that were always on again, off again, the prosecution said that after they broke up again after Mary died, that is when Caitlin decided to frame Adam to get back at him. The defense, however, said, well, hey, we should go back to Bill. He was one of your early suspects. Bill, husband, it's nearly always a spouse, and Bill started a relationship with Mary's sister after she died. Or did he? See, a neighbor said he saw Bill with Kathy before Mary died. So, this is a story we've seen again and again. The husband did it because he was having an affair and he wanted life insurance or money or just to get her out of the picture. He did get a payout after his dad died, so he didn't need Mary. And Mary was the primary money maker at the practice. He could have easily snuck into the office that day or done it before Mary left for work. He also had access to Caitlin's computer at work and her searches, so it could have been him, using Caitlin's computer after she left for the day and searching for colchicine, accessing a fake email address in Adam's name. Though, she also did have searches for colchicine on her phone, on her smartphone, and that's never been explained. Like, how could he have, gained access to her phone? And the defense was saying, Caitlin, she had no motive. Caitlin had broken up with Adam, not the other way around, so why would she want vengeance? Now, one thing to know about Caitlin Connolly is that when she was being questioned by the police were extremely hard on her. At one point, you can watch this online, at one point during an interview, she physically puked. She physically threw up due to the stress they were putting her under.
Take some deep breaths.
I wouldn't risk my life for this. It doesn't make sense for me to put so much on the line. My life, my future.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, Mary's sister, well, her sisters, other than Kathy, they sided with Caitlin. They believed Caitlin innocent. Bill was the one that, probably murdered Mary. Caitlin Connolly's trial ended in a mistrial after 4 days of deliberation. Hung jury. 8 believed Caitlin innocent and that Bill was a liar. Bill, however, as a witness for the prosecution, he was given immunity. He could not be charged. Ever. The retrial of Caitlin Connolly began in November 2017. This time, the defense, they aimed at Adam. They switched, in trial number 2, they switched from Bill to Adam. They said the anonymous letter was the truth, and Adam had access to Caitlin's electronic devices. He also had access to the practice. See, it came out that Adam had allegedly sexually assaulted Caitlin a year before Mary died, and that's why they broke up. Now, Adam, he denied this. He said he couldn't remember anything from that night, and that Mary learned of this when Caitlin told her. Mary would not have been best pleased with her son. So, what you can get from that is that Adam framed Caitlin to get back at her and to stop her from filing a police report, saying that, he had sexually assaulted her. Now, Caitlin Connolly, she never filed a proper police report regarding this, so who knows if it actually happened or not, but it was what Caitlin claimed. And I suppose we can sit here all day and talk till the cows come home about the scenarios and the whys and the what-ifs, but what did the jury think? It was another hung jury. Again, they were not convinced she had done it. Not all of them. But this time the judge, he said, essentially, "Get the fuck back in there." This time, they came back and they found her guilty. She was convicted of manslaughter. Caitlin was sentenced to 23 years in prison.
I would like to thank my family and friends and strangers for standing up in support of me. That was all. Thank you.
As I said, Mary's sisters, they don't believe that she did it. There is a website, Free Caitlin Connolly. On the website, Mary's sister Janine wrote a statement. Now, it's long. I'll give you the cliff notes of what it says. But it's so strange that the victim in this case, Mary, poor Mary, who suffered a very tragic fate, when the victim's sisters don't, they believe it's someone else, it really gives this whole story such an odd twist. Now, let me just read out a little bit of their statement. Again, folks, this is all apparently Allegedly. Our brother-in-law, Bill Yoder, had both financial and a romantic motive to kill our sister. We have information to show he had probable knowledge and use of colchicine in the early 1980s to grow a crop of super, not just regular, super marijuana. Now see, colchicine is used to help grow the devil's lettuce. It improves the yield and the growth of weed. Don't know, of course, what you do with that information. Just saying. So they were saying Bill knew all about colchicine. In fact, maybe he even already had some, and that him and his son Adam framed Caitlin for murdering Mary. Here's a quote. Bill Yoder has been underestimated throughout all of this. He is a brilliant scholar with 2 PhDs and was the valedictorian in at least one of them. He is an avid murder mystery buff and the quintessential detailist. If anyone could pull off a murder and frame someone, he could. He has far more computer knowledge than he admits, and he had access to the devices that incriminated Caitlin Connolly, as did Adam. I can't know exactly who did what, but I believe both Bill and Adam had a hand in my sister's death. Mary enabled Adam by giving him money as much and as often as she could. Shortly before her death, however, she began to take a firmer stand with him, and they had a falling out. Maybe Adam meant only for Mary to get sick, so as to get back in her good graces by taking care of her, as has been said. This is consistent with Adam's behavior. But consider the fact that the level of colchicine in my sister's system was far greater at her death than when she first entered the hospital, and was high enough to kill her many times over. So, she had severe diarrhea and vomiting for 2 days, which should have cleared her system. The fact that the colchicine levels were so high at her death suggests she was dosed at least one more time. The only family member with access to her then was Bill. Bill had everything to gain from Mary's death. He wanted to retire, but he and Mary had ongoing financial problems and there were no retirement savings, just a lot of debt. That's interesting, big if true. But of course, Caitlin was convicted of it. And that's where we remain to date. Caitlin appealed in December 2020. In March 2021, that appeal was denied. Now, the website for Caitlin Connolly, Free Caitlin Connolly, it's still strong. It's still going. The voices calling for her freedom have only grown since I previously talked about this case a couple of years ago. It's one that always stuck with me. It really is one of those ones where I mean, I was just never convinced Caitlin Connolly did it, that she killed Mary Yoder. I'm not saying Bill or Adam did it, but something about this case always stuck in the back of my brain. I don't know what it is. It's an interesting case. Who framed who, motives, there's a few, but strong ones. Hard to pin down, I think. As I said, this case never really stood right with me. If you want, check out the Free Caitlin Connolly website, where you will learn a hell of a lot more about this case and the reasons her defense thinks she is innocent. But the next case I'm going to talk about is nothing like this one. It is definitely a slam dunk. Stacy Castor was born Stacy Daniels in Clay, not literally, well actually, yes literally, Clay, New York, the year being 1967. Stacy was a very intelligent child, a quick learner, not quick enough, and growing up in upstate New York, much like Mary Yoder. In fact, Stacy Castor and Mary Yoder, they were only an hour away from each other. Growing up, Stacy wanted to get into the law business. She was certainly capable enough to do it, though a fellow would change the course of her life, and she would shorten his. His name was Michael Wallace. She was introduced to him at age 17 in 1985 by some friends, and she would call him, what else, the love of her life. Head over heels, at the flick of a switch. How many times have I used flick of a switch in this podcast? Way too many times. And Stacy and Michael quickly became inseparable. 3 years after their first date, in 1988, Stacy married the mustachioed, mulleted Michael in Stacy's parents' home. And Stacy? She was as happy as a pig in shit. They would have 2 daughters together, Ashley, born in 1988, and Bree in 1991. Stacy worked for an ambulance dispatch company, that's kind of funny. Michael, he worked as a mechanic, and they didn't have much. Though, what Michael did have was a love of booze and a love of drugs. So you know, that'll keep you warm at night. He was a professional skier, if you know what I mean. Let the records show I'm touching my nose in the cocaine gesture. Now, Michael and Stacy, they were very close with their children. Though like one kind of with the other. Like, Michael, he was super close with Bree, while Stacy was Ashley's best bud. And they did everything together. So, Michael and Stacy's marriage, like their differing love of their children, they also had differing love of each other. Michael, he was a bit of a hound dog. Hell yeah, dude. And Stacy was pretty sure he was sleeping with other women, and she was contemplating divorcing him. Seriously getting ready to contact a divorce attorney as 1999 wound down. But hey, Christmas is coming, let's leave it till the new year, give the kids a last, family holiday together, right? Nope. It was around then that Michael started to feel a little under the weather, and then a lot under the weather, like a hurricane. It would come and go, but never for long. He would be shaky, unsteady on his feet. He'd be in bed all day puking, and talking and walking were difficult for him. Now, Michael, he was 38 years old at the time, no medical conditions, and no one could really figure it out. During Christmas Eve family dinner, he was all over the place, coughing. He looked swollen, puffy, he looked like shit. And everyone at this point, he'd been sick for so long, everybody's like, here, I'm kind of fucking sick of you being sick. Go to the doctor. And Michael Wallace would pass away on the couch of the family home on the 11th of January. To the doctors, it just looked like he had a heart attack. 38, quite young for that, but not unheard of. Maybe an autopsy would have been warranted, but when the doctors said, well, looks like his ticker done gave out, Stacy said, okay, that's fine, no need to dig in, literally. And so no autopsy was done. Tragic, Stacy, she got the life insurance, 50 grand, and she took the kids to Disneyland. So, happy ending. And then there were Tree. For a bit. And then there were Tree again. On August 22nd, 2005, 5 years after Michael Wallace died of a heart attack, wink wink, Stacy called 911.
Communications, can I help you? My name is Stacy Castor. My husband didn't show up to work this morning. I don't know what's going on. I'm just getting a little concerned because I haven't talked to him since 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday when he locked me out of the bedroom.
Has he ever mentioned hurting himself or harming himself? Or
Friday night when we were arguing, he told me to get out, take my kids and get out. I could leave. And then 5 minutes later, he said if I left, he would make me sorry. I would be sorry if I ever left him.
She was telling the operator that her second husband, David Castor was his name, hadn't come out of his bedroom in days. She said he was acting weird, drinking a lot, and he had locked himself in the bedroom and was not answering to anyone. Deputies arrived to the Castor house, still in Clay, New York. And Stacy, when they arrived, she was frantic and she was fearful that he may have done something drastic to himself. Officers, they kicked down the door and they found David Castor lying, naked, face down, on the bed. Stacy, she was beside herself with grief and all that. Twice, two husbands dead. Jesus. David Castor had been married to Stacy for 2 years by this point. They had met through Stacy's boss and married in August 2003. David, he ran his own HVAC company, and they both had kids from previous marriages. Well, Stacy, obviously, Bree and Ashley, and David had a son, David Jr., who was all grown up. Now, David didn't get along especially well with Ashley and Bree, I understand. There was a certain amount of tension, but, they tried to make things work as you do. So, this August 2005, it would have been their second anniversary, and David, he wanted to get away for some alone time with Stacy. However, Stacy didn't want to leave her kids alone for 2 weeks. It then devolved into a 7-hour argument, according to Stacy, who has the energy for that shit, ending with David grabbing a bottle of whiskey and locking himself in the bedroom. After that, she didn't see him, could not open the door, could not get him to come out, and he would not let her in, until, on the Monday morning, she called 911. not hearing from him for a while, absolutely frantic. So, the police, they started snooping around the bedroom, seeing what was what. And they noticed what looks like... radioactive Gatorade is really the best way to put it. But it didn't smell like Gatorade, though. Weird thing to keep by your bed. Like legit to describe it to you, what they saw, it was like a whiskey tumbler on the bedside locker, filled with this bright green liquid, almost like glow-in-the-dark color, like Simpsons radioactive color. And then, under the bed, they saw what looked like, well, I mean, looked like because it was, a bottle of antifreeze. It was on its side, and the top was off. Why would you need antifreeze? Bit chilly? In upstate New York, in August, in your bedroom, not near your car? And then another thing an officer took note of was a turkey baster in the bin, with what smelled like alcohol on it. So, booze and antifreeze. Had he decided this was a good way to get... I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. People have committed suicide by drinking antifreeze before. Not a good, very bad way to go. But according to Stacy, it made sense. David Castor, his dad, he had recently passed away. And he had been drinking, he had been depressed, so case closed? Well, as usual, the others who knew David Castor, no. The answer to that is no. Makes no sense that he would do something like this. And that turkey baster they found in the bin, in the trash can, that set off alarm bells in the detective's head that something was off here. Something stinky. The authorities then started running lab analysis on the items found beside the bed, and also the turkey baster, just to see if there's any other DNA, fingerprints, all that shit. Now the glass, the radioactive Gatorade glass, that was antifreeze, and it had Stacy's fingerprints on it. Now Stacy said she hadn't been in that room for days, and that her husband killed himself with the antifreeze. But why were her fingerprints on the glass then? And her fingerprints were found on that glass in such a way, like she was holding it from the bottle. Like imagine you're somebody is lying in bed and you're feeding them a glass of water, giving them a sip. And also, if he wanted to kill himself, he had a shotgun under his bed. He could have blown his own head off instead of suffering an excruciating, lengthy end. And poisoning is a much more common way for women to kill. When testing came back from the turkey baster, it also revealed not only was there alcohol in it, antifreeze was there too, mixed with the whiskey, and David's DNA was on the tippity tip. There were no fingerprints on the turkey baster though, which, if David had decided to turkey baste himself, that would be weird. And of course, shockingly, my friends, folks, this'll blow your mind, the police learned that in David's will, he left every single thing to Stacy and her daughters, and absolutely nothing to his own son, David Jr. Didn't seem like David had written the will, don't you think? When Stacy got the money from the will, she immediately started splurging, renovating the house. The money was burning a hole in her pocket. So at this point, though, the medical examiner had ruled David's death a suicide. But the police, they kind of disagreed. They were not done just yet. They wanted to keep digging. Things looking how they looked. And digging, they learned about Michael Wallace, who had also died under strange circumstances. Also, weirdly, Michael Wallace and David were buried right next to each other. I mean, I guess, Stacy picked out the plots as their wife. Bit odd, though? I don't know. In 2007, the detectives then looked into what actually happened to Michael Wallace and his manner of death. How he died made no sense. He had no real medical history, and so they decided to do what should have been done 7 years earlier. They dug him up, exhumed him, and, well, when you drink antifreeze, it's absorbed into the body fairly quickly, and there in your body, it forms these like microscopic crystals, and it's those crystals, that kill you. They build up in your organs, they cause liver failure, kidney failure, heart failure. Those crystals are the telltale sign of antifreeze poisoning. They were found in Michael Wallace. So Stacy has 2 husbands who died of antifreeze poisoning. The police then went to re-interview Stacy Castor, who at this point, 2007, thought the case was long shut. Get ready for a surprise. Now, there was cranberry juice on the bedside table of David Castor. And the detectives, they asked Stacy if she had remembered which glass she poured the cranberry juice into. You know, there's 2 glasses, one with the radioactive Gatorade, the other with cranberry juice. And so they're like, hey Stacy, which one did you pour the cranberry juice into? And she replied, get this. This is literally what she said. When I poured the cranberry juice. Oh shit. When the detective said, do you mind just repeating what you just said to me? Stacy, she then went all, oh, you're trying to frame me. You're a crooked cop. This is bullshit. She stormed out. Speak to my attorney, bitch. So, it was looking bad for Stacy. She obviously mixed antifreeze in with his drink, and as David got weaker and weaker, she kept pouring it down his throat with the turkey baster. And that was just David. Looks like she did one of them double homicides. And also, she did a terrible job of cleaning up the scene where David died. I mean, if she had actually done it, you think she would gotten rid of the turkey baster. gotten rid of some things. So, the police wanted to keep on her. And so, they wiretapped her home, surveilled her house. And when they were doing this, they could hear her panicking as she knew the noose was tightening. They even started surveilling the graveyard where both Michael and David were buried. Maybe just make her look like a teensy bit better if she showed just a modicum of grief and visited her 2 dead husbands. I mean, they were buried beside each other, for fuck's sake. Make it easier for her. It's just one trip. Did she visit? Did she fuck? So at this point, they were tree again. And Stacy's close with her daughters. They'd stick by her. Never believed she would, have anything to do with her husbands. 2 of them, their deaths. Even when the police visited the daughters and told them, we're pretty sure your dad was killed, murdered by poisoning, Ashley and Bree were in disbelief. Stacy was absolutely mad when she heard that the police were visiting her daughters. So then Stacy, she did this. She said to 19-year-old Ashley, the daughter she was closer with, come over to my house. Come over, let's get wasted. It's been rough. We've gone through some rough times. Let's have a mother-daughter little drinky session. So Ashley went over, and Stacy gave Ashley a drink in a plastic cup. She drank it, became lethargic, went to bed. The next day, jeez, me head! She went to school, and later on, Stacy says to Ashley, hey, let's do it again, just as gals. And then later on after that, Stacy made this phone call.
I need an ambulance at Muscle Road. My daughter is taking some pills. She's having trouble, I think. It sounds like there's something in her throat.
Is she conscious?
Yes, she's making noise.
Is she breathing normally?
No. An entire bottle of vodka, Ashley.
Is that her?
Oh, she's throwing up. She's throwing up. Ashley. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. This is not happening.
Stacy has some balls on her, some cojones. You really do gotta give her that. So what happened was this. Stacy and Ashley drank away. The next morning, Bree, the younger sister, went into Ashley's room and found Ashley unresponsive. Bree then got Stacy, who came running in and called 911. Stacy told them that Ashley, she had taken a bottle of vodka and a shitload of pills. And that's when Bree found a letter in the room. The note, featuring 0 punctuation, goes a little something like this. Well, okay, here, let me just summarize because it's an absolute nightmare to read. In the note, Ashley confessed to killing both Michael Wallace and David Castor with antifreeze. She had put it in both their drinks. Wow, just confessing to the whole thing. By the way, the letter, it was typed, not handwritten. Red flag already, and it'd be very handy for Stacy that Ashley would admit to killing her dad, her stepdad, and then, just as it all was getting to her, killing herself. Very handy, that'd be very handy for Stacy if that happened. It'd be especially handy if Ashley died. Ashley, she was rushed to hospital catatonic, and it went right down to the wire, but she survived. She came to slowly, and the police, they were immediately on Ashley like flies on shit, asking her what had happened. The last thing she remembered was, guess what? Her own mother giving her a drink, and she had no idea about any note. It was while Stacy was outside the hospital, smoking a cigarette, that she was arrested for the murder of David Castor and the attempted murder of Ashley. Stacy pleaded not guilty to the charges, said it was her daughter. Look, she did it. She clearly killed my 2 husbands and then tried to kill herself out of guilt. Her defense, they went to it, it was Ashley that she killed Michael, David, and then tried to kill herself. And the defense, they hired a private investigator to look for a way to pin this on Ashley. One thing this PI found was a teenage letter she had sent to her boyfriend saying she had previously attempted suicide. And so that moment was like, aha! For the defense. Well, here, listen, we have proof, right, that Ashley previously tried to kill herself. Probably out of guilt, right? Because she killed 2 grown men. Duh. Though you'd also have to believe then, if you believed that, you'd have to believe that Ashley killed her dad when she was 10 years of age. A few people, though, including Stacy's mother, Ashley's grandmother, believed that Ashley was responsible. For the prosecution, though, nothing ever indicated Ashley was involved. No evidence of all that. And the suicide letter that Ashley wrote, well, for one, it was typed, not handwritten, and several drafts of that exact letter were found on Stacy's computer. And the timestamps for those drafts were when Ashley was in school. Couldn't have done it. So yeah. In January 2009, the trial began.
Did you kill David Castor by poisoning him with antifreeze?
No, I did not.
Did you try to murder your daughter by poisoning her with alcohol and pills and try to frame her for the murders of David Castor and Michael Wallace?
Absolutely no, I did not.
She killed, after all, your 2 husbands, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
She did. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about a list of reasons why Ashley killed. We'll start with Michael Wallace, her own father. If you had to put these on a list for the jury, let's start with reason number 1.
I don't know.
No, go ahead.
I can't give you a reason why she would do it.
So if I give you 10 reasons, we're going to start at number 1, and number 1 is I don't know. Did anybody in the year 2000 know Ashley Wallace better than you?
Probably not.
Did anybody in the year 2005 know Ashley Wallace better than you?
Probably not.
And you, as you just said, have been in jail for 16 months for a crime you claim you didn't commit, correct?
That's true.
And your answer to this jury, when I ask you to give them the number 1 reason why Ashley Wallace killed her own father with antifreeze, your answer is, I don't know, correct?
That's correct.
Would you agree with me that a 12-year-old that kills her own father with antifreeze, would it be fair to characterize that person as a psychotic monster?
Yes, it does.
No. This person who has some problems.
Well, I get up in the morning and I got to shovel my driveway. That's a problem. I'm talking about a psychotic monster type problem. Would you agree with me?
No, I'm not going to. I would not define anybody who has a mental illness as a psychotic monster.
Oh, so Ashley has a mental illness.
If anybody could do that, I would say they did.
Okay, now we're making some progress. So, mental illness. How would you characterize the mental illness that Ashley had when she was 12?
I didn't say Ashley had a mental illness.
You don't think Ashley has a mental illness?
I did not say that I thought Ashley had a mental illness.
Okay, well, let me ask you now. Do you think that when she was 12 years old, Ashley had a mental illness as you sit here today?
I can't answer that.
You think she killed Michael?
Yes. And
it wasn't just, I came home, I lost my temper, I hit him with a frying pan, and oh my God, he's dead. This was a long time periodic poisoning of her own father, correct?
Yes, it does.
Ooh.
Correct?
Yes.
That person has got to be seriously ill, mentally ill in your opinion.
Yes.
At 12 years old, right?
She was 12, yes.
Now, tell the jury what signs you saw of this aberrant, serious, psychotic mental illness.
I didn't use those words, but there was a change in Ashley when her father died. She would.
No. She didn't get psychotic after she killed him. She had to be psychotic before she killed him. What signs did you see of that mental illness?
None.
How about from the time up until David Castor's death? What signs did you see?
Of Ashley?
Of Ashley's mental illness.
As I said, after Ashley's father died, she had withdrawn. She became distant. She spent a lot of time alone.
Wow, that sounds really weird, doesn't it? For a girl, a 12-year-old that lost her father, she got withdrawn? Was this an increase in the mental illness that she was suffering from?
You asked me what I observed, and I am telling you. And I said, that's the glass that I poured the antifreeze, stopped, and said...
Oh, you just said antifreeze.
I said free, is what I said.
Okay, let's do it again. So now that I know what Spinelli said, And I want you to do it exactly as it happened on September the 7th.
I can't do it exactly as it happened.
Why not?
No, I'm going to overrule it.
How could I do it exactly as it happened?
Well, you remember it.
It lasted 4 weeks, and on February 5th, 2009, Stacy was found guilty of second-degree murder and of attempted second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 25 years to life for the murder of David, and another 25 years for attempting to kill Ashley. She didn't get anything for Michael's death because so much time had passed, they couldn't prove that he hadn't done it himself. And also, Stacy, for forging David's will, she got 4 years in prison. With all that, I mean, Stacy was 41 years old at the time, so it was essentially a life sentence for her at that point. But her life would not be that long. Stacy Castor, she went to a women's correctional facility in New York, still continued to deny that she was responsible for anything. And in June 2016, she was found dead in her cell of an apparent heart attack. Hope they checked for crystals, guessing they did not find any. And that's Stacy, called a Black Widow. 2 husbands, and attempted to kill her own daughter and frame her. So she had quite the resume to the end of her days. And she would give a pretty good performance when it came to trial. Pretty dark, she very nearly got away with it. Definitely will not be looking at turkey basters the same way again. And also, just want to say, if you ever develop gout, take it easy on the culture scene. Yeah, that's my lesson for today. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being here, being with your boy Mike. Really, guys, it means a lot that you're listening to the podcast. The support has been incredible. I don't think I'll ever be able to thank you enough. So yeah, it makes me so happy to see that you guys are enjoying listening to it, and honestly making it. This is so much fun. So thank you. Yeah, and you'll hear from me in the next podcast episode in a couple of days, or in the next video. And also, if you wouldn't mind rating, reviewing, subscribing, following to the podcast. I know in some platform, on whatever you can do on your platform, it helps out incredibly a lot. So thank you so much if you do. But here, listen, until the next old episode, please, as always, take care of each other and yourselves, because I love you. Mike out.